Hello, my name is Talia Hook, and I am a student at North Central University. And today we'll be talking about systems thinking and pharmacology. This past week, I was to look at various examples of how pharmacology has not necessarily always played a positive role in overall family systems. Looking at the statistics, the suicide statistics for children on SSIRs are astronomical. The amount of medication that is being prescribed to children has more than quadrupled in the last decade, at least a decade in which these papers were written, which was turn of the century, so the late 90s to and through and including like the early 2000s. So it's the data that's out there done by non-biased parties does not paint psychopharmacology in a good light when treating youth. When treating adults, you have the same issue in terms of there not necessarily being a full disclosure to explain all all possible effects of being on medication. Although the likelihood for suicide rates aren't necessarily as high with adults, and some of the other permanent side effects with children with SSIRs, primary example that was used in these papers, are not necessarily the case for adults. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about was the key principles that MFTs should use when thinking about pharmacology within the family that they're treating. If you as practitioner diagnose someone with ADD or ADHD, someone being a child within the family, or if it was a previous diagnosis that you currently agree with, and the teacher and the doctor and parents and child, everyone's kind of either on board or on the fence about maybe using medication for this child. How is MFT, are we supposed to be able to kind of approach that in a way that is systemic? The one paper that I got most information out of that was at least most helpful and beneficial to me was the one written by Jacqueline Sparks and Barry Duncan. They provided specific guidelines. The first thing is to conduct a thorough assessment, systemic assessment of the particular problem, to gather information from the youth and from the parent and the physician and everybody involved, to make sure that you're gathering all the information that you need. I mean, parents may have a completely different perspective than physician, which may have a similar perspective to the teacher. So you want to make sure that you can get as many people involved as possible, a rabbi or a priest if they're having a consistent relationship with the child. So you can, it's true systemic gathering of information. You want to develop a framework for understanding the problem, which includes the psycho-emotional development, the environmental impact, and the interactional explanations between all of those things and how they kind of interplane with each other. With regards to people in general, independent of youth, you want to make sure that everybody that's going to be involved in this process, in the experience, not the process. Well, yes, the process, but also the experience, is aware of the potential risks, specifically those that are adverse risks. You want to make sure that they understand the meaning of off-label prescriptions. And here's something that's really important that I never really thought about doing, but you want to make sure that they understand the lack of studies out there that support the combination of psychotropic medications. You want to also kind of talk to them about the impact that advertisement has had on these particular studies, that they may not necessarily show an actual non-biased perspective if GSK, GlaxoSmithKline, is providing research about a particular product of theirs, that may not be a good resource to use in making a decision as to whether or not to use it. You might want to, not only do you want to research the drug, but then you also have to research the people that did the research, and providing them tools to do that so it's not overwhelming for the family and for the participants that are kind of part of the team to make the decision. So let's say someone is extremely close to a priest, and the priest is coming to these meetings. You want to make sure that he is also comfortable in understanding the full impact that adding psychopharmacology to a family dynamic can have. It's not always positive. Overall, all the articles stress the need for MFTs to become very savvy with their ability to critique pharmacology, to be able to, again, look at who did the research, whether or not the research was of quality because of who it was done by. Is this something that you can take to the bank is legitimate data, or was this done in a way to be able to kind of further promote a particular drug? Big pharma definitely plays a role in the research, and one of the things that I wanted to highlight was at the end of this article: an ethical approach for all clinicians requires that those involved in helping families with medication decisions become aware of the relationship between profit-driven industry and science, and what science actually reveals. You're not going to necessarily always get a legitimate, accurate read on a medication all the time just because it's in a medical journal. So you definitely, as practitioner, want to be as savvy with at least the most popular drugs that are being used the time in which you're practicing for the most popular, or common, I should say, rather, diagnoses. So you can not only have an intelligent conversation with the families that you're providing service for, but also, in theory, you might want to work together with their pediatrician or with their general practitioner if there aren't children involved. This is a powerful statement that also drove a nail in a coffin for me in terms of whether or not I should put myself through the elective of taking psychopharmacology, which I think I've come down on the side of the fence of doing. Without a reasonable skepticism and active critique, clinicians, even with the best intentions, are complicit in a for-profit enterprise where clients' interests take the back seat. Clients' interests take the back seat. We're supposed to, physicians do no harm, and if your clients are not in the front seat, then harm could happen, unfortunately, and it may not be, obviously, the clinician's intention to harm. The other component to this project this past week that I was supposed to look at was the way in which MFTs can take a proactive stance with knowing the limitations and the benefits of drug therapy. I broke that down into 3 specific things: self-educate, 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 self-educate. Embrace pharmacology. That's something that in previous readings I've come across that a lot of MFTs don't really want to embrace. They don't really want to self-educate. Sometimes it's maybe above our heads in terms of the physiological impact, and the reading may be very dry, or it's something that you go into the field having a bias to begin with, but it would behoove us to embrace pharmacology, and become informed, to be able to make informed decisions. And you also want to continue to pay attention to the detail, as I said before, details within the research, i.e., if you're looking at an SSIR and you see that the trial time was for 12 weeks within that research project, they looked at the benefits of an SSIR in 12 weeks. That's really not enough time to determine whether or not it's had a positive and negative effect. It's not really enough time to determine whether or not the side effects that have um, shown themselves are permanent, or are they not permanent. So you want to look at all those small little details when looking at a particular study to see whether or not a medication is something that you would suggest or not suggest. You have to take all of that into consideration, and that will help, I think, pan out, or sorry, it will help clear the cloud that is pharmacology, and looking at, unfortunately, the limitations that exist because there's so many contending reports out there in terms of pharmacology good or pharmacology bad. So educate, 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 educate. I thank you for your time. Or I should say self-educate, self-educate, self-educate. I thank you for your time. As always, the information that I spoke to in this little talk will be posted at the bottom. And should you have any questions or thoughts, I can be reached at taliahoke@gmail.com. Thank you.